no matter how ugly it got, no matter how the offense looked, 3-0. At the end of the day, we are still 3-0. And boy, does it feel so good to be able to come away with 3 victories against 3 pretty good football teams with defenses. And to be able to have a defense of our own feels really awesome. First, I'll start with the obvious. Huge shout out to Mike Pettin and the defense again for a heck of a job of creating turnovers, and that was the huge difference in this game for us, was creating turnovers, not always capitalizing on them, but creating turnovers, creating pressure, and that was the difference in this game. As far as the offense goes, it really started out of the gates and looked like a really, really, really good offense. That was the case against the Minnesota Vikings. That certainly was the case. That started against the Denver Broncos, where Aaron Rodgers threw a 40-yard strike to Marquez Valdes-Scantling to start out. We went up 7-0, and then Denver got their offense going, and obviously it was a Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman show from there on out. We, as a defense, could not stop those guys. And that was a little bit of a concern going into this game, is stopping the run. I really felt like that our run defense was a concern going into the season, actually, a little bit, as we just don't seem to have a habit for stopping the run. I thought that maybe that was probably because Dalvin Cook was such a good back, and you got to give credit to where credit is due. Dalvin Cook obviously is a 100-yard rusher almost every single game. He obviously ran wild all over the Oakland Raiders today, but Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman were almost impossible to stop. So the run defense is a little bit of a concern to me. And but that's okay. Enough with the negatives. I'm now going to go to the positives. And the pass defense for sure stepped up. They played pretty well and held Joe Flacco to just 209 yards. No touchdowns and 1 interception by Darnell Savage. Shout out to Darnell for coming up and making a really, really nice play when needed. Correction, Joe Flacco got 213 yards. Not much of a difference. So the defense definitely did a good job of clamping down against the pass and holding Joe Flacco to that many amount of passing yards and only 16 points. Considering how good Denver's offense looked at times with Lindsay and Freeman just being able to find every single hole that they needed to do. And honestly, if it wasn't for a few nice tackles in the open field by guys like Jair Alexander, Blake Martinez, it could have been a whole lot worse. And I'm just going to give a huge credit to the defense again for being able to step up and make all the plays necessary for this team to win yet another, a little bit of an ugly game again. But that just goes to the testament to how resilient this team is. And, this has been kind of like the MO for the Green Bay Packers is resiliency and just fighting it hard to the very end. And that's where I'm going to give credit to the coaching staff, Matt LaFleur, Mike Pettin, all of them, is for the resilient effort that the Packers displayed today, last week, and against the Chicago Bears. And just simply making plays to win the game. And that's what counts. That's where we are 3-0, because this team just made plays, specifically on the defense. Just to go run through this to the final stat line for the Packers, I'm going to start with the passing game with Aaron Rodgers. He wound up going 17 of 29 for 235 yards, and the touchdown pass to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Not a very great day for Aaron, really. He was he kind of started out. He started out fast and then started to fade, and he wasn't able to find a whole bunch of receivers open. Devontae Adams wound up facing so much double coverage, but wound up catching a couple of passes. They were 4 for 50. He was 4 for 56. Marquez Valdez-Scantling 6 catches for 99 yards, and the 40-yard touchdown strike. Danny Vitale, our fullback, got 1 catch for 27. I'm glad to see that our fullback kind of got used for once. Our tight ends were unfortunately a non-factor in the game. Mercedes Lewis got 1 catch for 19. Robert Tonyan only 1 for 4 yards, and Jimmy Graham was held in check, no catches, and only 1 target. So that was kind of disappointing to go through that, is that we weren't able to use our tight ends in the passing game, as the Denver Broncos are known to be pretty weak at going up against tight ends, and that is something that I'm hoping Matt and the guys work through through this next upcoming game when we face the Philadelphia Eagles, is to get our tight ends more involved. But, shout out to Vic Fangio and the Denver Broncos for coming away with a good game plan. They did what they needed to do. They stopped the tight ends. They had a good game plan for Devontae. They stuffed our run. We were absolutely not able to find almost any holes at all whatsoever. Aaron Jones got 10 carries for only 19 yards, but he did score 2 touchdowns. And that's what was a huge help for the offense, was Aaron Jones whenever he was able to find some holes. And when we got in the red zone, we scored those touchdowns, and that's what helped the offense in that regard. Jamal Williams got 12 carries for 59 yards and chewed out some tough yards to help the team seal the win for the offense. And back to the defense again. I'll go to each guy's stat line. These guys obviously were the difference makers in this game, and I can't give enough credit to Mike Pettin and the defense for doing an absolutely phenomenal job in this game and being the reason this team won. First, I'll go to Jair Alexander, who was I thought he played really well. His coverage, for the most part, was really good. He had the tall task of taking on Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton sometimes, depending on the coverages, who was going up against who. Blake Martinez was all over the field making tackles, and made some nice tackles in the backfield to help seal the win. Adrian Amos did a good job of stepping into Raven Green's inside linebacker role, with Raven unfortunately losing him for the whole entire year. Darnell Savage for the interception. And to the last 2 guys, the Smith brothers. And boy, did they deliver. Preston Smith, 3 sacks and 1 forced fumble. And the last sack was the game sealer for us on the defensive side. And Zadarius Smith with 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Those 2 guys made a huge difference, and it just really feels really great to have a good pass rush and a defense that can just force turnovers. And that was a huge weakness for this defense last year, and it just feels like free agency just really pays off, you guys. It really does. Without these 2 guys, I have no idea where we would even be. Would we even have a win? That's just a question I want to pose to you guys. Do you think we would have a win if it wasn't for these 2 guys, the Smith brothers? I also would like to give a shout out to Rashawn Gary for whenever he got time in there, he was able to wreak some havoc in there, and he came away with his first sack of the season. So for all you Rashawn doubters, all I gotta say is just give him a chance, be patient, wait it out. I'm not going to overreact to the 1 sack and the 1 big play he made, but I would just say just give him a shot. He'll get some pressure. He'll get some sacks. Just be patient. And he got the sack. And now on to the game balls. This is going to be pretty blatantly obvious right here. The game balls go to these three guys, including two unsung heroes in this game. The first game ball goes to Marquez Valdez-Scantling for the offense for that beautiful catch for 40 yards, and that got us on the board early as we went up 7-0. The second game ball goes to Zadarius Smith for his 2 sacks and abilities to make plays all over the field. The third and final game ball goes to none other than Preston Smith for obviously just being a complete absolute terror and made the strip sack and made the big strip sack to help the Packers score, and the game-sealing sack in the game as well. And the 2 unsung heroes that I would like to mention, and I did not really give them credit for last week's game against Minnesota. These 2 unsung heroes I should have mentioned, but I'm going to mention them now, and that is David Bakhtiari and Brian Balaga for an absolutely fantastic job of clamping down on 2 stud edge rushers, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. They did an absolutely fantastic job of blocking for Aaron, and as a result, there was a few pressures, but no sacks. And that was a really big factor here, is that Aaron had some clean pockets for the most part and was able to make some throws, and best of all, he was not sacked in this game. So, huge shout out to David and Brian for another good week of keeping some of the better pass rushers in this game from getting to Aaron. So that's it for this video. Again, I am very happy to say that we are 3-0. It was not easy. We had to grind it out. Oh, let's just say this is going to be a very tough, hard-fought year for the Packers, and I believe that with this resilient squad, we can overcome those obstacles, and we will win the NFC North. So that's going to do it for this video. I'll catch you guys later. Go Pack, go.